So today we're going to dive into the absolutely incredible journey of a man who went from selling tea at a train station to leading the world's biggest democracy. Yep, this is the story of Narendra Modi and how his path completely changed the game of Indian politics. Let's get into it.
You know, it's one of those things that sounds like it's straight out of a movie script, but it's 100% true. And that one single fact, well, that's the starting point for one of the most unlikely and frankly most remarkable political stories of our time.
Before he was addressing world leaders, giving these big, powerful speeches,
And before all the motorcades and the massive weight of running a country.
Yeah, long before the constant glare of the international media was on him, there was just a boy, a kid from a small town who had some pretty big dreams.
So the big question is, how did he do it? How does a journey like that even happen? Well, let's trace his path from a small town in Gujarat all the way to the highest office in the land.
All right, so every story has a beginning, right? And Modi's story starts in a place that's about as far from the center of political power as you can get.
Narendra Modi was born back in 1950 in a small town called Vadnagar in Gujarat. Now, humble is the word you always hear about his family background, but honestly, that might even be an understatement. His father had a little tea stall at the local train station, and a young Narendra would be there helping him out after school. And look, this wasn't just some after-school gig for pocket money. This was about survival. Money was tight, and every single rupee mattered.
But what's really interesting is that even in these tough circumstances, you could see these little hints of the person he would become. He was known for being super active in school debates, in drama, always asking questions, always ready to speak his mind. It was pretty clear he wasn't someone who would just sit back and accept things as they were. Okay, so this next part, this is a huge turning point in the story. This is the decision that basically set the course for the entire rest of his life.
At a young age, Modi joined the RSS. Now, to really get his journey, you have to understand what the RSS is. It's a national volunteer organization, and he became what's called a pracharak, which is essentially a full-time worker who dedicates their entire life to the organization's mission. So his time here wasn't just about ideology. It was like a boot camp. The core things he learned were ironclad discipline, a deep commitment to serving society, and, this is key, incredibly valuable organizational skills. You could say this was his real university.
Think about it. At an age when most people are focused on, building a career, making money, finding some comfort, Modi chose a totally different road. He lived a very simple life, traveling all over India, really getting to know the country and its people from the ground up. He literally chose purpose over any kind of personal comfort.
So, after all those years working behind the scenes, learning and organizing, Modi was finally ready to step onto the main political stage. He officially got into politics with the Bharatiya Janata Party, the BJP, and his rise, it was fast. By 2001, he was made chief minister of his home state, Gujarat, and he'd stay in that job for over a decade. As chief minister, Modi built this reputation for being a very decisive, pro-business leader who was all about getting things done. His government was behind huge infrastructure projects, like totally redeveloping the Sabarmati riverfront, and it attracted a ton of investment. Gujarat really became an economic powerhouse under his leadership.
But here's the thing you really have to get about this period. It was incredibly polarizing. On one hand, his supporters absolutely loved him for this strong leadership and his economic vision. They called it the Gujarat model. But on the other hand, his critics raised some very serious questions about his style of governance and his methods, especially when it came to social issues. And that divided perception would follow him all the way to the national level.
And all of that, it was all leading up to this, the moment that would change not just his life, but the entire country. 2014, that was the year. That was the game changer. After more than 10 years as Gujarat's chief minister, Narendra Modi was announced as the BJP's candidate for Prime Minister of India. And what a campaign it was. It was high energy, it was everywhere, and he connected directly with millions of voters with this core message: development, accountability, and a complete break from the old way of doing things. The result was a political earthquake, a massive landslide victory that gave his party the first single-party majority in 30 years. And just like that, the story came full circle. The young boy who used to pour tea at a little railway station in Vadnagar was now the Prime Minister of India. It was just a stunning end to an unbelievable journey. And that's really the narrative that defines his entire rise to power. It's a story that isn't framed around being born into the right family or having money. It's framed around sheer, relentless hard work and an unbelievable focus on a single goal.
And that's really the question his life story makes you ask, isn't it? No matter what your politics are, his journey is this powerful case study in how far sheer determination can take you, no matter where you start. It's a story that's still shaping India today. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.